in the form of the marriage violator's perfume and blood still clung to the sheets. She'd only been gone an hour on a church errand her husband had contrived for her to do. 1 hour. And now this? Sarah covered her mouth and turned away, hastening from the sight and stench of the filth, taking her baby girl to lay her in her crib. With her hands trembling, she left the screaming infant, whose wails intensified as she turned away from her. Shame burned through her. How could she call the church elders or talk to Mother Stone about something like this? How did a preacher's wife, the first lady of the church, force her lips to say that her husband, the Reverend Richards, had lost his natural black mind? Amid the now hiccuping cries from the nursery, Sarah became very still as she heard movement in the small clapboard house below her. There were 2 voices, one soft, seductive. The other was that of her husband. He'd brought this whore back to his home again. Once wasn't enough? Did he think she was so foolish as to run another church errand at night, again, so he could get away with doing God knows what? Couldn't he hear his own child screaming her lungs out? And wouldn't he know that his wife was upstairs? Did he have so little respect for her, or was it that this whore's pull was that strong? Tears of bitter rage and hurt stung Sarah's eyes, the pain of her acknowledgement almost crushing her rib cage as the muscles around her heart constricted. This woman, this transgressor, had a hold on her husband that not even the Lord could seem to break, because Father God knew she'd preyed on it from the first inkling of doubt. Now, her husband had brought a violator back into his house? Her house? A home designed for a minister, his wife and children, across the street from hallowed ground. Sarah felt her knees begin to buckle as she envisioned the faces of loyal parishioners who hung on the good reverend's every word, just as she once had. This house was not a home, nor was it a place where she or her child could find peace. She resisted her first instinct, which was to barrel downstairs to confront her husband and the heifer that had crossed her threshold. But something slithered inside Sarah's soul and gave her pause. The green-eyed monster raised its ugly head. She had to know what this hussy looked like. Who was this woman that could break up hearth and home using something that all women had? She wanted to spy and know the things her husband said to this homewrecker. What lies had Armand Richards told? Silently, like a thief in the night, Sarah Richards crept down the hall, hugging the wall. She knew this house by heart and easily avoided the creaky floorboards. Stretching her body, she clung to the very paint as she peered around the corner of the landing. The baby's cries escalated, her pulse rising along with it. She held her breath as she rounded the corner and froze. A tall, handsome, male figure the color of cafe au lait and dressed in an impeccable black suit ran a palm across her husband's jaw. The caress was sensuality personified. The sight stole the scream from Sarah's lungs as her husband closed his eyes and dropped his head back in a display of sheer, feminine submission. Sarah took the stairs one by one, clutching the handrail to keep from passing out. She couldn't breathe as she watched in abject horror while this man, a man, not a woman, embraced her husband like a lover and lowered his head to Armand's exposed throat. When she heard her husband groan, something fragile within her snapped. Everything became a blur. Her feet flew down the stairs. Her screams outstripped her infant daughter's. The words became a chant. God, no! Not that! She would crucify this beast, the fouler of her household. There was no rational thought as she hurled herself forward, trying to grab hold of his broad shoulders. She wanted blood, a pound of flesh. But the agile intruder simply swept her husband up in his arms as though he were sweeping away his bride, and deftly